can't see with all the light here, 3/8 of an inch, which is a pretty small buttonhole. You'll also notice that if you see the size of the templates here, the templates are much larger on this one, so it allowed them to create you can create much larger buttonholes. So if you do things like jackets and you need big buttons, obviously not this big, but if you need big buttons, this is definitely the machine for you. It also comes with the keyholes, and it comes with a much larger range of keyhole styles. It also comes with these for doing, say, a bound buttonhole, where basically it will just stitch a straight box that you can use your template. So that's the main differences between the two buttonholers, and I've got some videos showing you some of the functions of the actual buttonholer in action, so you can see a little bit of the difference. So let's take a look at that video now and take a look.
Okay, so the first buttonholer we have here is the Greist buttonholer, and what I'm doing now is I'm advancing through the template, getting to the top of the buttonhole. You can start your buttonhole anywhere you like, I just happen to like starting at the top. And we're just going to go through a buttonhole here. See how it moves the fabric back and forth. That's fine if you're doing something that's light or like a button-down shirt. When you get into, you can see how if you're getting into a heavier item, that it's a lot of movement, you know, especially the farther away from the actual attachment it is. If you look at the end of the side of the fabric there, it's moving quite a bit. So here's a close-up of the mechanism creating the actual buttonhole. And I'm using keyhole templates for these, just so you can see the actual shape of the keyhole. And you can see how in the Greist buttonholer, it's a fairly good satin stitch that creates the size of the buttonhole. So it's not even necessary to go around the buttonhole twice if you don't feel like you want to. A lot of times on a button-down shirt, going around the buttonhole twice can sometimes create a little bit too heavy of a buttonhole. So I'm going to go around this one. Let's see if I'm going to go around twice here. No, I'm not. Okay. And so in this clip what I'm showing is the adjustment of the width of the sides. So I'm going to adjust it to a more narrow width. This also changes the space between the sides of the buttonhole. You'll notice on this attachment, I'm using this attachment on a left needle machine, which is why the buttonhole is being created more to the left of the center of that attachment. Usually you'd be using it on the center needle machine and the hole would be more centered in the attachment. They do make a left-handed needle model, however I found that you can pretty much just use the regular model on a left needle machine. It works just fine. So you can see the hole I just created there was much more narrow. So now I'm going to set the attachment to a wider width. Watch that stitch here. So you can see the attachments make it very easy to create duplicate buttonholes. You know, once you have it all set up and you have your tension set for your fabric and everything is set up on your machine, you can create, buttonhole after buttonhole and they can all look exactly the same. Even more so than if you were using a computerized sewing machine, sometimes these attachments, as simple as they are, they work really well, which is why they've gained in popularity recently. So you can see here what I'm doing is I'm overstitching the same buttonhole. And it creates a thicker band of stitching. This mechanism, because it's shifting the fabric back and forth, you can't go full power when you're creating these. It'll just end up a lot of times you'll end up breaking the needle. To create the best buttonholes, it's best just to go slow as you do it. So looking at it, you can see this is a double stitched buttonhole. This is the second one here is the narrow, and then two versions of just the regular. I think that's probably a number 3 setting, the 2 on the right there. So here we have the Singer, the zigzagger buttonhole. I'm using this on a Singer 500A, and you'll notice, so what I'm doing is I'm using the advancing mechanism to advance through the template to the top, and you'll notice as I'm using this buttonholer that this doesn't use the feed dogs don't drop on this machine. The actual needle plate rises, and it kind of pivots, and you'll notice that as the buttonholer moves over the top of the feed plate, the fabric will shift up and down a little bit. So you see, it's a lot less movement of the fabric. It just advances, it just turns. You can see the needle is what moves back and forth here, and all the fabric has to do is just go around the actual hole. And you can see this is the most narrow setting here on this buttonholer for stitch length, and you can see it's still rather long stitch. It's definitely not a satin stitch. So here I'm going over the same hole twice, and you can see it's definitely better on the second run through, but that's not, you know, the first run around with the Greist was actually a better buttonhole. So now what I'm doing is I'm changing the width of the center of the hole here towards a more wide center. You can see there's a bit more space there to cut. As you change the zigzag width of your sewing machine, it also changes the width of the space in between the 2 rows of stitching. So when you're using this buttonholer, especially, that you definitely have to play with your settings and determine what's working best for your fabric. Let's see what I'm going to do on this one. So now what I'm doing is I'm changing the center width back down to looks like about a 3, and now I'm changing the length of the stitch to the setting has a 1 or a 2, and you'll see here this really elongates the zigzag. It's nowhere near a satin stitch any longer. I'm not sure, I'm sure this is useful for some types of fabric. I'm not sure where I'd use this. So now what I'm doing is I'm over stitching it, and you can see the stitching is landing almost exactly on top of the previous stitching, which, that's okay, but it's definitely not a satin stitched buttonhole. With this mechanism, because it's not shifting the fabric back and forth to create the zigzag, you can actually run the machine a little bit faster. It seems to do okay with that. So now I've shortened the length of the stitch again, and now I'm going over this buttonhole 3 times. This is the most satin you can get. There's a point where you just get so much thread in there that you'll eventually start breaking your needle, or the thread starts to get jammed up. A tip in making buttonholes, to make the front of the buttonhole look its best, is to try setting your top tension less, so the stitches get the lock stitch gets pulled to the back side, so that way you get the prettiest part of the buttonhole should be on the front of your garment. So now what I'm doing is I've stitched it around with a wider zigzag, and now I'm stitching it around again with a narrower zigzag on top of that to create. So this is 3 times around for this last buttonhole here. And what I'm going to demonstrate here is the presser foot pickup here. If on the Singer it works fine, but on another machine this can hit the plastic casing.
Well, I hope that's cleared up at least some of your questions you may have had about buttonholer attachments. These attachments can both be had for around $20 on the used market. The price has gone up recently because people have become more aware of them and of their functionality. So I think that the best things to look for when you're looking for a buttonholer is a full set of templates, and the user's manual is definitely helpful in the beginning to help you get started. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment or email me, and I'll be happy to answer any additional questions you have. Thanks for watching.